Today's featured guest is Kevin Hess, who is a scout for Central Scouting for the Ontario Hockey League, and he represents all of Michigan, probably a little bit more. So we want to thank everybody for joining today, and I want to thank Kevin for joining. You can mention this after, but I don't forget how long you've been actually with Central Scouting. But I know it's been as long as I've known you, longer. But Kevin's has a really keen eye for talent, and in fact, Kevin's coached in the Michigan AAA loop for as long as I've known him as well. Last year with the Honeybake 04s, where he's had several guys drafted. It was a phenomenal team. And for some crazy reason, Kevin's teams always end up as the top teams. And it's actually, there's, success leaves clues. Kevin's, like I said, he's got a real keen eye for talent. And Kevin and I have a history. Kevin and I was doing skill development for one of his teams, which I ended up being a head coach for in Bell Tire, which we were a phenomenal team. And Kevin was my right-hand man. And, in hockey, Mike Weber said this last week that you don't make it alone. And Kevin was by my side, loyal as a golden retriever. But he was loyal, but he actually knows the game. He knows it inside out. So what he was great for, he was identifying players. He was great at breaking down systems. So I could go into a game and Kevin would know who their players were, what their tendencies were. And as he allowed me to coach, and he was able to, Andy, take a look at this. This is what they're doing. And honestly, guys, every single time it was correct. And I guess to open up, can you maybe give everybody a welcome, like your background in hockey and how you got into scouting, I guess, and how did you get to the OHL Central Scouting? And I'm not sure if it's called the Central Scouting Bureau anymore or just Central Scouting.
Yeah, I think we dropped the Bureau this past year. It's just OHL Central Scouting. Thank you for having me, number one, and thanks everyone for joining Andy today. This is what we need more of in the hockey world, is not just trainers that train and watch YouTube videos and think it's cool. We need trainers that passionately care about their clients and their kids, and not only how they do on the ice, but how they're doing off the ice. And I know for a fact that Andy, he would care more that you're a great citizen rather than being a great hockey player. But both of them, they sometimes they go hand in hand. So I started playing hockey. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio. Not the hotbed of the world, but I moved to Michigan in 1996 to attend Eastern Michigan University. There I played club hockey for a year, and then I moved into, I became a student, and I missed hockey. I missed it a ton. And I was working at the local hockey store, Perani's Hockey World. I think you guys have one of those in Windsor, right?
Yep.
A coach came to me, he goes, I need help. I need a young guy to help me with these kids and, relate to them. And he was like 60 years old. He loved the game. And I was his 19-year-old assistant that was just learning the ropes. And so I started coaching there, and I made the jump to AAA right away, actually, with the 87 CompuWare team. Coached that through their minor midget. I coached CompuWare and Michigan Ice Dogs through their minor midget year, and then jumped over to Little Caesars for a year, and that's when I went to the OHL. So in 2004, 2005, I jumped into the Ontario Hockey League. And for anyone out there listening that wants to be a scout, if you're an older kid that might be moving on the way out of hockey, I just contacted every team in the United States Hockey League, the Ontario Hockey League, the North American Hockey League. There was one time before the USHL was created, the Frontier Hockey League, British Columbia Hockey League. I contacted them all. I emailed them all. And a man by the name of Rob Kitamura, who had worked for the Barrie Colts, had just taken over Ontario Hockey League Central Scouting Bureau, and their Michigan Midwest guy had quit. And he goes, for a year, I'm going to give you a tryout, and let's see how you do. And I've been there ever since. So it's been a long trip, and it's always about learning.
It's funny how you said you got a tryout, because one of the things I say to kids all the time, you're always being watched. It's just one of the things as a hockey player, you're always being scouted, you're always being evaluated, always being watched. It doesn't end as a player. It's a scout too, right, on your performance and how you interact with people. So that was great. So Kevin, what exactly is, a lot of people don't know the difference between, because we had Brian Prout on a few weeks ago with Saginaw, a phenomenal guy. But a lot of people don't understand what the difference is between Ontario Central Scouting or NHL Central Scouting and the team scouts. And how is it different? And how is it different as far as a team scouting staff goes? And what do you do?
For us, I mean, we have our own, the Ontario Hockey League Central Scouting, we are our own staff. We have myself here in Michigan. We have a guy in New Jersey, 2 people in Toronto, 2 guys that cover the Alliance, 2 guys that cover the OMHA. We have a guy in the north where you're from, Sudbury, Dougie Benham. Have
Good
to
buddy
give
of
him
mine.
a shout out. Great guy. We have a guy in Ottawa, Blake Callahan, who does a terrific job. And so we're our own team. So our similarities, we're very, very similar to teams. We're looking for, number one, does a player have the skill set to play at the next level? And then immediately after that is, does the player have character? Like, does the player have character? That's the big thing. So Brian and I probably are very, very similar in what we're looking for in a player. And then with Brian, as they're going through their draft, it'd be what do I need? And that's a lot of it. It's not just going to be the top player. It could be what do I need? Like a quick example would be in the 96 draft year, the need for the Guelph Storm was a left shot forward that can play right away. In that draft, Windsor ended up taking Josh Hosang. He was a right shot, but Robbie Fabry, who's now a Detroit Red Wing, was the next one. That was their best. That was a left-hand shot that they needed to play forward in their top 6 in 2 years. So that's where a team would be, is what do I need this year? What do I need the next 2? What do I need in the next 3? And that's what they're looking for. And sometimes it's a wealth of riches where they can just take best player available. For us, we just go by best player available at Central Scouting. We break them down by position first, and then we think where they would fall in draft order.
Okay, so the difference between Central Scouting and the Windsor Spitfire, Saginaw, Spirit, whatever team that you want to say, is you're more concerned with, like, basically what you provide is a ranking to the teams to help their scouts. Would it be fair to say that we've ranked these guys in the top 20, and so have they? Like, is it kind of like a matching game almost?
Correct. And then for me, it's a little bit different than, say, one of our guys in the Alliance or in the GTHL, is because a lot of teams don't have the budget to have an American scout, or it's just not feasible for them to have an American scout. Like a lot of the teams in the Far East, like the Windsor's West, I'm sorry. Like the Kingston Frontenacs, they don't have a guy here that really does cover Michigan or the Midwest. They have a guy that works the Alliance, and he'll come over and watch the Michigan and the Chicago-based teams. But that's where mine's a little bit different, where I'm giving them that overall, helping them there. So, we're helping teams that don't have that far reach at times.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, you guys are identifying players, ranking them. You're not concerned with, obviously you're not concerned of right-hand D, left-hand shot, all that stuff. You just basically said, here's how I identify the best player. And you also said that so basically, in a nutshell, you're looking at players. This is going to go a lot of different ways, Kevin, I think. If you're looking at players and you're saying, okay, who are the eligible players for the OHL, who are the top D, and you guys all come to a consensus and say, this is who we think our top D are. These are our top forwards. These are our top goalies. And then is there a ranking on top of that?
Yeah, then we'll sit down. We sit down twice a year, 2 to 3 times a year. It all depends. This year, because of our situation, we only got to sit down twice. The first one is during the Silver Stick time, so American Thanksgiving, right up until when the Marlies tournament during Christmas time that's when teams generally meet. And then what we do is we go 10 at a time. So we go around the table, we're like, all right, give us your top, let's say, let's put our top 10. We put them all on a giant board. And then we pluck from there, saying, here's who we think our number 1 is. Here's who we think our number 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. And we just keep going in groups of 10. And it's manageable for us. The 10 is, our first round last year, that conversation probably lasted an hour and a half because there's so many good players there in the top 10 area. And then we go down from there, and then we meet again after we've seen the guys play a second, third round, especially, and then in their playoffs, and see if anyone's going to move up or down. And there is a lot of movement there, especially after the playoffs. The playoffs show a lot about a player, not only their skills wise, but their hockey IQ and their mental maturity. Okay, so this is going to go a few different ways for me here. You mentioned that you do look at character. So I was actually, as I was thinking more and more about your job as in the Central Scouting, I actually thought that there would be a different perception. So, and my perception was, because you're not working exactly for
with a team, that you're just strictly looking at players and you're saying, okay, best hockey player, and you're going best hockey player, best hockey player, best hockey player, and not so much about the character. And I just kind of thought that the Central Scouting would not necessarily take character into as much consideration, because it's not something that you necessarily have to deal with or something like that, but you actually do look at character. So can you explain that? Because that's something that I truly believe is a huge part of hockey, obviously. So can you talk about that with character? What do you mean by character?
Absolutely. But just first, Andy, I don't work for a team. I work for all of our teams. I work for all 20 member clubs. And that's why characters, it's huge. So looking at just at the end of the day, the team, an Ontario Hockey League team is investing anywhere between $10,000 to $15,000 in a player per year that they play for that organization. You got to think of all the equipment and travel, like all those hockey expenses, but then now they're schooling, because not everyone on the Windsor Spitfires is from Windsor.
Yep.
Players from the U.S., you have players from Toronto, Ottawa, Sudbury. You got to find them housing, and you got to find them a school. So there's money there invested there, and then the schooling packages after you're done. That's a $60,000 over 4 years of university or college. That's a $60,000 investment. So at the end of the day, a team is putting nearly $100,000 of their hard-earned money into your future per player. And that's a huge reason why we have to look at character. So the first thing for me after, of course, if a kid is a relative, he has the skills to play, is the first thing I ask their coach is, how is he as a teammate? What's his character? This year, I had coaches personally tell me that they would not draft this player if they were drafting at all, even though the player had a ton of skill. They would not draft him because of he just wasn't a good teammate. After being a good teammate, is you have to ask about their schooling. The old adage is that if you're not a good student, you can't play. If you're not a good student, the OHL or the WHL or the Quebec League is the league for you. That's not true at all. You have to be a good student. Guys like Joe Birch, who came in that 2006 draft year, that was his big thing. He did a great job there. And then now Kyle Pereira, who does the same thing for the Ontario League. He's the director of education and recruitment. It's the same thing. The grades have to be there. You have to be a good student. You can't, quote unquote, you can't be a dummy. The next thing, and this is something I learned from actually my mom. My mom works with the team doctor for the Cleveland Browns and the Cleveland Indians. And at the draft table, they're ready to draft a guy, and they will look at the guy and goes, what is his social media? And the guy will give the thumb up or the thumb down. And I know the Browns have not taken a player because they're just stupid on social media. So you really have to watch that as a young player. I know you want to have your opinion and everything, but you really got to be careful with that. And then the last thing about character is for us is off-ice training. That's one thing I'll ask. Do they skip workouts? Do they skip video? I mean, I understand skipping, one video or one off-ice workout because, you have a paper to write or you have a test to study for before your practice. But if they're routinely missing 4 or 5, 6 of these kind of sessions over the year, that's something that teams that definitely look into.
Yeah, character is a huge thing. So it surprised me from your angle that it was important. So coach or teams ask that. So as a scout, you're not just watching the game, you're watching a kid walk by you, how he's treating people, the whole thing. So it never changes. It doesn't matter who you are.
Absolutely. One thing, Andy, just from this past year coaching at Honeybaked, we had a very, very good club. And one of our guys was skipping the pregame. Wasn't skipping it. He was doing his own thing. A scout asked about it, like, why does he do his own thing? And the coach was like, what do you mean he does his own thing? He walks out with the players. He walks out and he comes back with them. And so we had to actually go watch our team warm up off ice. And we're like, hey, why are you doing your own thing? And he's just like, my focus, he just wanted to get focused. That's what he was telling us. Yeah. He was still warming up, but we're like, hey, do it as a team, and then do it before and after. Cause that's something that, these guys are here to watch us play. They're noticing that you're off doing your own thing. So just be careful with that. I'd say especially goaltenders, watch that. Cause I know goalies go through a whole different type of warm up after, but make sure you warm up with your team players and then go off and do your own thing after your team warm up is done.
Yeah, awesome. No, that's good. Okay, so here's the big question. Identifying players, what do we look for? So the game has changed, definitely changed. Well, no, let's say this. What are the things that you're looking for as a scout that makes someone stand out?
Andy, you're absolutely right, though, and that's going to lead right into it. The game has changed 1,000% since you and I played, even since you and I coached
Yeah.
together. It has definitely changed. My first thing is hockey IQ, and that's a lot of different things for me wrapped up there. The first thing for the hockey IQ for me is their ability to make plays. Can they make plays with time and space? If you have a lot of time and space, can you make a play? Because sometimes there's guys that are just in a whole patch of ice by themselves and skate themselves into a circle, or, you know, they skate themselves into a problem. So with time and space, and then under pressure, can they make the plays? Can they create their own time and space? And can they create it for their teammates? How well do they find that quiet area in the ice to score or get open for another scoring opportunity or a breakout pass, et cetera, et cetera? Their 200-foot game, especially if you're a wing along the walls, or if you're a defenseman, are you beating that the guy behind, you know, the forechecker, you're beating him up the ice? The ability to adjust to your coaching on the fly. That's one thing I noticed in this age group versus other age groups I've watched over the years, is that their ability to adjust on the fly is a little bit slower than others that I've seen in the past, where I thought when I coached with you, our 97 group, you know, did a great job of adjusting to things on the fly. And then coming up through the years here, I thought another age group that just adjusts on the fly really, really well was the 2001 age group. The ability, I would watch a game and their coach would bark something out and bang, it was like, yeah, we got it. And they were done. It was right there on the bench. They didn't have to take a timeout or anything. And then the last thing with hockey IQ is their temperament. There's a ton of skilled hockey players out there, and especially in youth hockey, the beatings they take. The skilled players just take a beating, and can they take that beating and not physically retaliate? And that's a huge part of their hockey IQ, I believe. A great example of that is when coaching with you, Mitch Marner.
Yep.
At the time, I think he was playing for the Don Mills Flyers, and they were an okay team. They weren't the most skilled, but Mitch was a very, very good player and would just absolutely take a beating. And he would just keep ticking. There was never a retaliatory penalty out of Mitch Marner. The way he retaliated was, you know, making you look silly and putting a bar down and celebrating his goal. That's how he retaliated. So those are just the quick things that I look for first is a hockey IQ. Next, skating. Straight line, east-west, transitions. If you can't skate, generally you can't play the game. There's not many Ray Shepherds. You probably have a young crowd. They don't even know who Ray Shepherd is, but
Yeah.
He was a guy who played for the Detroit Red Wings that all he did was score goals, but getting to the net was like watching me skate. Wasn't pretty at times, but the man did score goals. The third thing I look for, and if you want to cut me off and ask a question, just let me know.
No, okay. As far as skating goes, how much has it actually changed? Like I guess is it just skating has to be so elite now? Is that basically it, or is it?
I don't want to say it's elite because, I mean, there's always kinks in someone's stride, and like look at your Windsor Spitfires, Foudy, north south. He is just a beautiful skater. Like, my goodness, it is. I have a feeling in a puck race he's going to win it every time. Like, his skating is just beautiful. But the one thing out of John Luke that he's really improved this year was his first three-stride quickness out of holes. You know, those first three strides, bang, he's out now off of cycles, where before it took him a little bit of time to do that. Same thing with Will Cooley. Good, powerful skater, but his first three-stride quickness out of corners this year off of cycles really improved. So that's one thing that you look for there in terms of skating. And then some guys are just kind of a north-south skater. There's not much east-west of their game, which there's nothing wrong with that. But the one thing I look for, are they trying to improve upon that? And over the course of the year, you see it. You see kids that, you know, they get that initial scouting report from their coach or their advisor or their trainer because they talk to scouts and they work on that, and you see it happening.
Yeah. So, okay. So after skating, was there something else?
Oh, yeah. The overall skill set.
Okay.
So I have a couple for overall skill set. The relative skill. For example, I mean, the toe drag toe drags are so cool, and that the lacrosse move, you know, is that made a comeback this year. Where I told my goalies, if anyone tried that, you have absolutely all swing stick head first. But my thing for their relative skill set, can a player receive a bad pass and stay in stride? We were just talking about Zach Cassian earlier, and that's one part of his game that I thought this year in Edmonton he has the ability, an uncanny ability to like get passes in the worst situations and get him to his tape and get him to other guys. And that's coming from a third line guy. So imagine, you know, a guy like Leon Draisaitl that he plays with, or Connor McDavid, like they're getting bad passes all the time and they don't lose stride. That's one thing there. So like relative skills. So can I take that bad pass? Can I, not dust the puck off and get it on net quickly? Can I make that move? Can I make without stick handling, without overhandling the puck, that kind of thing. The next part of the overall skill set is catching and receiving passes, knowing when and where to throw the hard bomb versus a touch or a soft pass to an area. I guess that'd be part of hockey IQ, but just a skill set. It's almost a dying skill set where guys aren't, they're trying to catch it that old. I know they can't see me, but that old fashioned way where they're bringing the puck back and like Mighty Ducks when they with the eggs, right? I'm probably dating myself there too, but the eggs, and they're bringing soft hands there. You have to be able to, tap the puck down and be able to shoot it right away. And then the last, I guess, overall skill is the shooting. The release, number one, quickness of the release, and then how many angles can they shoot from? Is there pull-in shot? Is there pull, outside, like there? Accuracy, hardness and heaviness, and then the ability to find lanes. Just watch NHL highlights, how many guys are putting it through bodies, through sticks, and, and scoring goals there. And then the last thing, I keep it kind of simple here. I know I talked a lot there, but the last thing is, what do they do well? So what does a player do well? Okay, they have the overall skill set. They're a good skater. They have great hockey IQ. What do they do? So just a couple of those. Do they have are they just goal scorers? That's one. A guy like Alex DeBrincat comes to mind.
Yep.
When we coached for Sam, when he played for Victory Honda, I'm like, I remember telling the other defense coach, please do not put this defenseman on when Alex DeBrincat is on the ice, because if he gets it, is going in the back of our net. And it went in the back of our net because Alex DeBrincat could score from anywhere in minor midget as well as in the NHL, as we've seen. What are the or defensive specialist? I always come back to, and I tell this to my players, the story you told me about Chris Draper, where they walked into Team Canada's locker room. They're like, if you're willing to sacrifice goals for our team, you will be on the ice every shift for some man named Jaromir Jagr.
Yep. And
now Chris Draper, assistant general manager of the Detroit Red Wings, and he had a great NHL career as a defensive specialist. That there's kids out there that are just great at it. They penalty kill. They just eat shots. Are they an elite playmaker? That might be the one thing they do extremely well. I had a player this year that I wanted to strangle because he would have grade A scoring chance, get the goalie down, whole net's open, then he'd pass it to a teammate because he was so unselfish. But just an elite playmaker, a guy like Barzell, Crosby, Claude Giroux. And then another one is do they score big goals? I had a player this year who played for me, Cam Van Sickle, scored. We had 6 overtime games this year. I think he scored 5 OT goals. Or Justin Williams is another guy who comes to mind, just like a big Game 7 player. So just what they do well is my fourth one.
I got a question on that. So what you do well, because actually Zach was talking to myself and Charlie the other day, and we're just talking about our webinar coming up with you, and Zach was talking about Kyler Yamamoto, and he was explaining to Charlie that Kyler Yamamoto plays for the Edmonton Oilers and is 5'8" at best, and probably not 150 pounds. So my son was asking, how does he play like these? And he said he's so fast, he's so good. So Charlie says, maybe I shouldn't hit as much. So my thing to him was, and this goes to you, what do you do well? I told him, I said, no. What you have to do, and it was a question I was going to ask you later, is when someone's looking at getting drafted, I think it's important, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's important to be who you are. Because if yes, the game has changed and there's less hitting, but if you are out there thumping guys left and right, you do get noticed. Am I right?
100%.
Unless you're a complete idiot about it, and that's all you want to do on the ice.
Yeah, if you're going to be a goon and that's out of the game.
Yeah. But
you have to be able to defend yourself, and yes, that is one of those things. If you're a good body checker, it's a dying art. But look at how teams win, and I look at the St. Louis Blues. How did they win? They won playing hard. They played a hard game. Like, scoring versus the St. Louis Blues was not easy because they were finishing checks, they were blocking shots, taking away lanes. They weren't fun to play against, and at the end of the day, that's why they won. And those guys, played their role well. Where if they were a checker, they were a checker. If they were, they need to score big goals, that's what the guy did. So, yeah, you're spot on there.
Yeah. So just to reiterate that, so when you're looking at your skill set and what you believe it makes you a good player, You certainly don't want to play a game saying, okay, I can't do that because that's not the game anymore. Because, I mean, if you even look at, I don't want to say the generational players, but basically, well, I was going to say Tom Wilson is a different breed right now because he finishes these rough and tough. It's not supposed to be like that anymore, but he brings something to the table. So I think that when you're a player, and I'm saying this for the kids that are watching, you know, if you feel like you have something that you are very, very good at, and you feel like you have success, it's who you are. So bring that. And I think from your perspective as scouts, you notice that, okay, this kid does this thing very, very well, maybe a little bit too much. Like maybe he's a great passer. Like for to say Joe Thornton, that's another, it's an extreme example, but if you pass like Joe Thornton, but at the risk of pass, you pass at the risk of shooting at all times. So that could be like you're, you know, you pass too much, but that's a strength still. So, you know, if you're a coachable person, we can somewhat fix that, right? So be who you are, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, that's great. So you don't change your game or adapt. You just play the way that you need.
You play the way you play the way you need to play. The only thing about adapting to the game is that when you watch a junior game and even the pro game, they work hard to get. This is one thing. If I can get out of this, if I can get anyone out of this, you work hard to go get the puck. Just don't give it away.
Yep.
Like just don't dump it away. Like it kills me when I go to a minor hockey game. You know, a puck pops out past the blue line and the defenseman just jams it back in. Make plays, like bring that puck back. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. And that's hopefully coaches the same thing. Like let your players play and let them make a couple of mistakes, but possess the puck. Like you go so hard to go get it, why give it away?
So if there's one thing to work on, if there's one thing to focus on as a player right now, I mean, hockey IQ, it's something that you can work on. But if there's one other skill that you'd say, make sure that you get this down, is what would it be?
Well, that's a tough question.
Yeah.
That's a question that I think the player has to ask themselves, honestly, is you always want to sharpen your mental game. And Andy, I'll be honest here, everyone listening, Andy is one guy who really had me sharpen my mental game. He was always giving me books to read. He's like, I'm reading this book and I read this and I read that. Like sharpen your mental game. That's not just reading books about hockey, but it could be just self-improvement books. I just read a great one. It's 21. It's about a lacrosse player that had passed away, and they honor him every year at this dinner. I think Tom Gordon wrote it. Anyway, sharpen your mental game, but look at yourself and what can I do better? Like what do I need to do better coming up, and don't lose the relative skill that you have now. So if you're an elite shooter, don't stop shooting pucks and start trying to become a dangler. Make sure you're shooting those 5,000 pucks, whatever it is a day. And then add something to your training repertoire to improve.
Great advice. As I call them, skill buckets. Basically, it's easy to, like, if you are a shooter, you want to keep your strength strong, but you also want to look at those skill buckets that you have and understand where your weaknesses are and put some serious time into filling up those skill buckets so that you become a more complete player, which doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, takes hard work, but you know, just like going to the gym, or just, you know, some people can't go to the gyms right now, but there's ways to be fit. And for the people that are doing it, you're seeing results slowly but surely, but all of a sudden you see them and you go, okay, this is working. It's the same thing as your skill buckets, right? So Kevin, a really common question, and you'll see kids, I mean, obviously you see it coming to the OHLs, you see kids moving to better teams and they want to play with the best players. And there's something to be said for playing with good players, but there's also something to say about playing on a weaker team. So as far as a scout goes, well, I guess number one, does that ever come to your mind? Like when someone jumps from team to team, does that ever make you say, you know, this kid looking for an easy way out? And secondly, go ahead. You go ahead.
Funny you say that. That is, that's a question that's been added more and more and more over the past couple of years. And the elite teams in the Ontario League and I'll even say the United States Hockey League, that's a question they're asking more and more. Is why when I look at your hockey, what is it, elite prospects profiles for the kids?
I don't even know what that is.
When I'm looking at your elite prospect profile, why does it list 4 different teams?
Right.
And I mean, it could be easy as, you know, my coach moved, which that is one of them. But yeah, some of them are quote unquote trophy hunting. And that's not something that I don't really think you need it. I don't think you don't need to leave home to, go play somewhere else. Like you're going to be found.
Okay. So that was my next question leading up to that. And we asked it on the last time with scouting and stuff. Playing on a weaker team, you can still, like, how do you identify? Because I'll be honest with you, I don't know if I could be a good scout. I honestly mean that. I've said that several times. A lot of people said,
I
"Oh no,
think
you
you'd
would
be
be."
a great scout because your knack for watching a kid's skill. You'd be a great scout. And I'm going to go back to Alex DeBrincat because you're actually the one who kind of pointed him out to me at that time.
Yeah.
When he was playing. Detroit Victor Honda was not a very strong team.
Yeah.
But my God, if that kid had an inch, he took a mile and would just absolutely kill us every time when I coach with you. And he does it now. He does it now. Alex did not play for the greatest team. But you could see his skill set was special. And you had, as a scout, I'm like, if you put him with elite players, it could be scary what this guy could do. And the Erie Otters took a chance and signed him on a waiver. Like, he wasn't even drafted in the Ontario League. They took him as a free agent. They put him between McDavid and Ryan Strome, right? Dylan.
I forget which one.
Dylan's a 97. Ryan's a 93. Dylan Strome. And there you go. Alex DeBrincat. And then, McDavid's gone. No, you're not going to be able to do it. Here, hold my Werners. And, he went and scored 50 more goals. That's just one player that always sticks out. Another kid, Michael Stubbs right now. Thunder Bay wasn't the greatest team. They're working on it. Good coach up there, my buddy Brady Fox. And he kept telling me, he goes, this Michael Stubbs kid's pretty special. I'm like, okay, I'll come and watch you play. The one thing Michael Stubbs could do is he could shoot the puck a million miles an hour. And it's showing. He had a chance. He signed with the Mississauga Steelheads. He's have a chance to jump in their lineup this year. Again, didn't play for the most talented team, but you could see the relative skill there. Again, he was creating time and space for himself, and he was making the most of the opportunities when he had them. And it's important for teams like that, like teams from Thunder Bay, and then in your area there with Windsor and Sun County and Chatham and Lambton. When those kids go to Toronto for the Marlies tournament, or they go to London for the Wendy Dufton, it's important to bring your A game. If you play your A game and you do the things that you're good at, people are going to notice.
Okay, so here's a $1 million question for me, because obviously you've got big Toronto teams, big Detroit teams, but then you got let's say Chatham. Let's just say Chatham because it's a smaller area. I mean, there is a concern. I mean, when I'm looking at it not from myself, but parents in general are looking at, okay, my son's playing hockey. We're investing money. I think he's pretty good. Like, how do I give him the best chance? And I could see where they say, I think the best chance is to play on a good team. So how is it, like, okay, let's say this, you've mentioned Stubbs and Thunder Bay. You can shoot a puck, put the puck in the net. All right. But let's say we've got more of a defensive defenseman.
Grayson Ladd is
on a weak team.
He plays in the Spits now.
Who's that?
Grayson Ladd.
Yep.
That's the example when you said it. Played for Chatham, and I was doing some major Bantam scouting at the time, getting ready for the next year's draft, and everyone's like, they're not very good. I'm like, hey, I got to do every team, gets two chances. I watch at least every team twice. So I went through it. I'm like, this kid makes a really good first pass. Like, good kid, had decent wheels on him. And I'm like, wow, he makes a really good first pass. I'm like, he made another really good first pass. And he just kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it. His first pass was just tremendous. Move his feet. He was really good at the seam pass. Like, he'd get to manipulate the forecheck or stick and just to make a seam pass. And that's a kid who stayed in Chatham. He was a first overall pick, I believe, of the Kitchener Rangers. They traded him to Windsor. He didn't need to leave. We knew he was, guys knew he was there, and he stayed with his team. And that says a lot about the kid's character. I'm sure he had the chance to jump to, a GTHL team, or I know he had chances to jump. Teams in Detroit were ready to put him up at private school to bring him in, and it shows a lot about his character. At the end of the day, staying with his family, staying with his brothers. Yeah, that's the one cool thing I think about when we come up with these. When I came up with the age groups, so I think it's the one cool thing about the Windsors, the Sun Counties, the Lambtons, the Londons. You're with your brothers for up to 7 years. And I think there's something to be said about that, the character, because it is easy to jump and, go find the trophy or, quote unquote, more exposure. But we go back to the character thing. I think it says a lot about the character of the kid and the family staying at home and playing with his brothers until the available moments.
Now I'm going to make a comment on, before I ask the next questions, I'm going to make a comment on what I've seen and my experience playing and coaching. So a lot of the people that think they have to be on the best team playing with the best players, yes, there are some good things to that. But I find the negatives is when you're on super teams, and I would just take our Bell Tire team when we had that. If I would have had that team from Adam right to the draft year, I think what happens is
You'd be coaching in the NHL right now.
but what happens is you're so used to playing with elite level players that you don't know what it's like to receive a bad pass, or you just can't understand someone that just dumps it out because they panic with a puck. Whereas, so when you get to another level, like legit, when I played in the OHL my first year, I would sit there and there's a guy from, believe it or not, he was ironically from Chatham, and he was just a meathead defenseman, and you could be busting a seam for a pass and he would be dumping it off the glass. And out you go like, what the heck? So my point to that is, if you haven't, so I come from Sudbury, so we didn't have great teams. Well, we had some actually good teams, but we weren't elite. So I was used to playing with guys that weren't elite players. You don't have to fight for, like you said with Zach, getting passes in bad areas and stuff. Whereas someone from, just to say, the Toronto Marlies, who have top tier players, they're not as accustomed to getting bad passes. They're not used to losing. So when you get into a situation where if you get drafted in the first top 5 and you're going to a lower level team, you're going to have some struggles. And I'm curious, can they adjust to the negative side of hockey, because it's not always shits and giggles, right?
Absolutely, you're spot on there. And I thought of it that way, but never thought of it that way of exposing yourself to all brands of hockey. Basically, is what you're saying.
And all different types of people, right?
Correct.
And that's where the leadership came in. So not to be a jackass here, but Josh Hosang has spent some time with me, and it was difficult to listen to sometimes, because he came from that system where it was great, and he thought it was never his fault, and that's kind of where I'm saying. I've seen that a lot from players that have never really lost. And, I think as a scout, it would be good to see how they react to losing as well, right? Or making a comeback.
Absolutely. And that's the one thing I wrote about goalies is, and it's players too, is their mental makeup.
Yep.
How can you adjust to adversity?
Yeah. So Kevin, let's go. So when we're looking at a forward or a D, of course it's easy. Anybody can, it's like, I use this example for working out. When someone says, working out or a practice, it was a really good practice because they're sweaty and they worked hard. Any idiot can do that. And it's the same thing when you're picking out a player. Like, anybody can see the guy that can skate down the ice and put the puck in the net. That's the easy part. So when we're looking at, let's start with, I really don't know anything about goalies, but let's take goalies, D, and forwards and break them down. As a goalie, what do you like to see? As a D, and I'm going from a D and a forward, from not the flashy guy. How does a guy like, I can't think of a name right now, but how does someone that isn't flashy, doesn't rush the puck, how does he stand out to get drafted? So let's go goalie, D, and then a forward if you can.
So a goaltender, first thing you're going to look at, is their athletic ability. Mm-hmm. Well, again, hockey IQ is important for a goalie. Has your team controlled the puck down there the entire time, and then the other team just chucks it out to ice it, and you see all 5 guys going to the bench, but you have a fresh crew? Are you coming out, stopping that puck and snapping up an outlet pass for your guy to get a breakaway or an odd-man rush, or them to get too many men on the ice? So that's like a hockey IQ play from goalies that I always like to see. Their mental makeup, because we would love a goalie that never lets a goal in, but their mental makeup, how do they rebound back? And at the end of the day, we'd always give the kid a hard time, but Garrett Forrest, who's we were just talking about, plays at Ryerson University in Toronto now. That'd be a guy that you'd have to score on quickly, and he would get mad and he was shutting the door after that. He was that's one of his best attributes was mental makeup. Like, he would have snaps at times, but when the madder he got, the better he'd play. So their mental makeup. And then after that, it's their skill level. It's their relative skills. Do they control rebounds? How do they move in and around their crease? Because you'd be amazed at how many goalies, Andy, can't skate north and south.
Right.
You'd be amazed, like watching a goalie go to the bench for a delay penalty in the Ontario League, and it like who the heck, like, but man, can they skate around a crease?
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, hockey IQ, mental makeup, the athletic ability, their skating, rebound control.
Okay.
For a defenseman, he's not a puck rusher. He's not going to be scoring goals. Their first pass. Number one, their first pass. And then number two, gap control and rush recognition.
Okay.
So transition to get the puck back. How good is their first pass? And you talked about earlier, is it a glass and out situation? Or can they make that first pass? Can they make that seam pass? Because puck possession is a lot of the game nowadays. And again, it goes back to what they do well. And then the gap control is huge for me. The tighter a kid can play a gap at the minor midget level, the confidence they can have to play that gap is that does translate to the Ontario League and then eventually the professional levels. Watching these guys grow up and grow through it, I definitely have seen that in terms of actually a guy you used to work with or still probably work with, Aaron Ekblad.
Yeah.
He is possibly one of the best gap control minor midgets I've ever seen. Like the one thing that jumped out about Aaron Ekblad to me, not only was he a great player, but my God, his gap control as a minor midget. I'm like, this is like a pro. This is like watching Nick Lindstrom play and watching him in the NHL. Like same thing. It translated very, very, very well. His confidence to, earlier on probably in his career to make that mistake, to do that. But for defensemen, again, first pass. And then, because even if you're a shutdown, stay-at-home defenseman, you're going to have to handle the puck. Can you outlet it for your team? And that's a huge thing in the puck possession game nowadays. And then, again, gap control and gap recognition. And by gap recognition, hopefully everyone knows that, middle lane drive, how are we communicating? How are we doing? All those things. And then forwards, you're not the puck rushing guy going down end to end, going bar down, backhand through your legs, whatever. First thing I look for forward there would their wall play, because I'm going to start from the 200-foot out. I'm going to start from my goaltender out. How am I along the wall? Or if I'm a center, if I'm a defensive center, am I getting open for that first pass from ID? Am I coming low and slow? Am I finding those areas? And then as a winger, their wall play. And then as we get up, what is our hockey IQ going up? So those are the things I look for there. And then at the end of the day, what do they do well? Because you have third line guys that the one thing they do well is, like, I had a kid this year, a kid named Justin Varner, who got drafted by the Sioux Greyhounds. His wall play, at the end of every game, if we were up a goal or down a goal, Justin Varner was on the ice to make sure that puck got out of our zone 90% of the time with some sort of possession. There's guys in the Ontario League that do that as well. One guy that jumps out to me from Windsor would have been Purbu.
Yeah.
His wall play over the 5 years of his OHL career just kept ticking up and up and up. And then Boca as well. I really like his game. I hope he has a chance to play professionally, and he could play all three forward slots too. Just his wall play was outstanding. His ability, his willingness to block shots, and his compete level. Just a lot of fun to watch.
That was answered excellently. Because those are things like, I think when mom and dad watch hockey, and this is not, it takes experience to understand all these little things, that why something happened. It's very important to see those little things, that they're doing something right consistently. And like little things like wall play, making the first pass, all those little things that you said, they're critical. And, sometimes they're not. Like, people don't cheer and get excited about someone taking a puck off the wall and chipping it out or put it on someone's stick. But you as a scout or a team watching that happen time after time, and when they're doing it without showing fear of getting hit and all these things, it means a lot from a scouting aspect, right? And so Kevin, let's talk about the draft itself. It's a common question, and I know it's something that people are thinking. It's hard to be a first round pick. There's only 20 of them. So and the first couple round picks are like, they pretty much have a spot. Well, the first rounders have a spot, and then it's pretty hard to not get a really good look at a second, third round pick. But I'm drafted in the 12th round. I'm drafted in the 8th round, and I'm happy, and I'm looking at it and I'm going, geez, there's really a spot for me. And I know that's not your job to say that because you work with the league, not the team. But what would you say to that kid, or even someone that maybe even didn't get passed by, or he got passed by in the draft?
Well, for the first one, getting passed by in the draft, I mean, I'm going to throw two examples out there. Alex DeBrincat played for the Erie Otters. He's making a lot of money now. He got passed by in the draft twice. And then Anthony Cirelli played for the Oshawa Generals, won a Memorial Cup. And if the league comes back, I have a chance. I think Anthony Cirelli might be a Selke winner as a defensive forward in the NHL. So those are two guys that they didn't get drafted because getting drafted it's an honor, number one. Like, I've never been drafted. I can only imagine the excitement around it. But that's just one day. Right after you're drafted, that's when your hard work starts. And if you don't get drafted, that's just hard work starts again. Like, don't give up. That's my one message is do not give up. There are plenty of guys out there that haven't been drafted in the Ontario League that have come in and played in the Ontario League, or they weren't drafted in the Ontario League and they're like, screw this, I'm going to go the school route and make money. A la Danny DeKaiser. He was very disappointed he wasn't drafted in the OHL. His next year, his when he turned 16 going on 17, he grew a couple feet, or grew a foot, was still an elite skater, and then OHL teams came knocking. He's like, yeah, you guys missed out on me the first year. I'm going to go and try to do this instead. Yep. For guys in the 8th round and 15th rounds, you look at the roster. Look at the roster of the team you want to go to. Okay, you're not going to play for him next year. What is I guess write it down. I mean, that's what I do. I write it down. What do I need to do to be able to make that team the next year? I'm going to go into training camp. I'm going to do this, and that. I'm going to show myself well in my first training camp. So don't be an idiot there. Make sure you work hard the first training camp. Try to make the team. And then in your exit interview, listen. Just keep your mouth shut and listen, because the good teams are going to tell you what you need to do to be on their roster next year. I know Mark Hunter in London does a very, very good job of that. He's like, I love the way you play. I don't have any room. This is what you need to do to be on our team next year. And a big thing with that, especially, in Ontario, I guess would be very important, is go somewhere where you're going to play and develop. If that means playing midget AAA, there is nothing wrong with playing midget AAA. The Windsor AAA Spitfires had a very good year this year. They had a couple kids drafted in that 18U draft. Mm-hmm. Go where you're going to play and go where you're going to develop. So is it better playing for the Windsor AAA team and getting, power play time where you might not have had power play time before, or PK time, or whatever it might be, versus am I going to go play junior B playing versus 20 or junior C playing versus 21-year-olds, getting 3 shifts a game, and then possibly having to fight a 21-year-old that works at the Chrysler plant and he's just in junior C to play with his buddies for the last year. Yeah. So go. I guess the biggest thing there is go where you're going to play and keep developing.
Yeah, that's the best. It's and I understand how it's hard because it can be dejecting for people, but it's the truth. If you want it bad enough, I think one of the things that we do, and I'm probably as a dad guilty of it because I'm a dad. As much as a hockey guy I am a dad, and of course you want your kids to succeed. You got to put them in the right spot, like you do. It's not a pride thing. I don't know if you want an easier road, but you do have to find out, like, do you really want this thing? Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is you have to remember why you play the game. You're not playing it to be like, yes, we all play to be in the NHL. We all want to play in the NHL. We all want to play in the OHL or college. But why do you actually play the game? And if you understand why you play the game, it's probably because you love hockey. And if you don't get discouraged because you weren't first round, second round, third, whatever, you play because you love the game. And if you play with the passion and you do the things that you're supposed to do to be the best player, if it's meant to be, it will work out. Or if your desire is higher, you'll figure out a way to get there. So that's something I would suggest to everybody is, don't play the game because you love the game, because it is freaking awesome. What about the late bloomers? Do you have anything for them? Like, how do you actually, can you spot a late bloomer yourself?
I've spotted some where I'd say this year, and that's one thing I get, and that's one, Andy, you're picking it right there. if you look at the teams that are continuously successful in the Ontario League, they are right after their draft, and we do it now as in Central Scouting, right after our draft, write down the top 5 kids that you thought that were not drafted that we need to keep an eye on. For now, we have that 18-year, the midget draft, but before it was as a free agent tracker for teams. Write down the top 5, top 10, and this year, I did that right away, and now teams call for that right away. Like, who wasn't drafted that I need to keep an eye on next year?
Yep.
For us over here in Michigan, though, most of those kids will play 16U. I don't know what they have. I believe you guys just have midget in Ontario.
Yep.
Correct?
Yep.
Are you guys adding? I heard you guys might be adding 16U.
Well, I think it's. I don't know exactly how it works. It's the same age, though. I think. I actually don't know how it works. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but that's. We track that right away. We rate that, like, who are the top guys that were there, and then and then just going to the rink and checking in on it, because then you check on your top 5 list and you're like, hey, holy cow, he grew 2 feet and added 35 pounds of muscle, and he has 65 goals in 32 games. Like, he's kind of coming out of nowhere. Those late bloomers are always there, and teams are always looking for him. I can't get a guy in Windsor. It's when you guys had billeted Ryan Moore at the time. Ryan Moore was on the Spits, but there's a guy that they got from like the Hamilton Junior Red Wings.
Oh, DJ Cinto.
Thank you. And his draft year, he wasn't very his draft year, I think he was like 5'5" or something, like 5'6", and then he grew a ton and was putting up great numbers in Junior A. And then the Spits, their scout down there saw him, but I remember talking to Warren Reichel about it. That was the one kid that they said that if he grew, that they would want. Like, that was one, that was on their top 10 list there of guys. If they grow, that's what we're going to take a look at, because there's a knack for, he had a knack for doing good things. So, but yeah, the late bloomers will be found as well.
Yeah, I have. I love talking about them because it's such a great story. So I have one, and so last year, a friend that I played with up in with the Sudbury Wolves, his son was played for the Marlies. His name's Ryan Thompson. So he called me and he says, Andy, I think he's played double. So in 1 year he got called up to the, anyway, he went AA, Toronto Marlies, major midget, AAA, played some tier 2, like a few games that year. And then he was in the under 18 draft. He was a first round pick to North Bay. And he didn't get drafted yet, or maybe, no, he wasn't drafted yet. No, he was drafted. So his dad said, I want to come down and have him spend some time with you and let me know where he's at. So he walked in about 6'3" and great kid. His dad's a beauty too. He stepped on the ice, and I said in probably 5 minutes, I went to his dad, to Derek, and I said, oh, he's playing. 100% he's playing. He was like, really? I said, 100%. And the more I worked with him, the more keen he was. But the thing is just a kid that, a lot of kids are just going to say, I didn't get drafted that first year, or didn't get drafted at all, and it's over. And there was a perfect example of, maybe he was a later bloomer, or he just got overlooked, but he's not flashy. He's a stay-at-home guy, but he's got what it takes. So, something I encourage people, like, it's not over. Zach and I were just talking about it the other day about guys no one remembers in the NHL. No one remembers the guy who got drafted first round to the Peterborough Petes. Like, once they get to the NHL, and they don't even care who got drafted to the NHL, because it's a matter of, can you play or not? And sometimes it takes, in fact, when you're 16 years old and you're a superstar, there's a lot of work to do. And I, a lot of times I'll put my money on the kid that has to grind through it and fight through it and fight for everything he has, because he's not entitled, and by the time he gets there, he's got some substance to him, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Kevin, one more question, and then I'm going to ask you something. So 2 more questions. I think you answered it, but I had one question: is if I want to be scout in the OHL, is OHL Central Scouting, is it possible, and how do I do it?
How would you go about it? It's just for Central Scouting. It would be contacting Daryl Woodley, D Woodley at chl.ca, and express your interest. And I know the league keeps resumes on hand at all times.
Okay.
I think this year, I don't know 100%, but I know a Bantam scout job will be most likely opening. I know they're looking for one. So send your resume to dwoodley@chl.ca. You can find that on the OHL website, on the Ontario Hockey League website there. And then for teams, the same thing, like email teams and ask about opportunities. And that's how I did it, and that's how these young guys are doing it. You know, if a team doesn't hire you, there are independent scouting services out there, and the teams and league hires from them as well. I'm just trying to think offhand. The Neutral Zone and the Scout.ca are two big ones that teams use fairly regularly. Redline Report as well.
Okay, cool. Okay, so college versus the OHL, and it's not which one's better. That's not my question. I got to be honest with you. There was probably a period of time. I mean, I've done the skills for Sarnia and skills for the Spits, and I've done a lot with the CHL teams. But there was a period of time where I was saying, you know what, I'm not sure about this league anymore. When I looked over across the river to the NCAA teams, I'm like, I think that might be the way to go. And I'm taking that from my experiences when I played in the '80s, from the coaching and the culture, and it was the Wild West when I played. Like I always said, remember I used to tell the kids on the team, I said, these eyebrows don't look like this because I pluck them. But it's changed. The quality of people that I've seen, like, I had Kyle Pereira on one time. I've had Brian Proud, and I've just known more and more people like in depth, and the quality of the organization. Webby was on last week, Mike Weber. And I got to say, like, honestly, and I'm not just saying this because you're here, it's an OHL thing. I'm really a 50-50 on, like, I have a son, so when I think about it, it's like you can't go wrong with college, of course. That's a good thing if you get it. But the OHL is actually becoming very impressive with the quality of people they have. Intelligent, homework is done, and I'm thoroughly impressed. What can you say about the OHL and that decision?
I think you're spot on with the people that they brought in. It started back when, it started when I started the league with Rob Kittamura. Central Scouting, from what I understand, was almost dead at that time. They were going to promote and possibly disband it, kind of thing, and just let the teams do their thing. And Rob Kittamura came in and revitalized it and put merit back into it and accountability, et cetera, into it. Rob took his job extremely seriously, and it's paid off with his amateur job with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And then Daryl Woodley came in, another Barrie Colt guy. It was just a random thing, but Daryl Woodley came in, and he just kept it. He solidified it even more. And with guys like David Branch and Ted Baker and Joe Birch and Kyle Pereira, they're generally it's the same thing with you, Andy, and myself. They want you to be a great human being. If you're a great hockey player, that's a bonus. And that's really what I feel the Ontario Hockey League has pushed here over the past 15, 20 years that I've been doing this. So that's the simple answer there. It's just people in charge, and great people are coming back to work with our teams.
Yeah, no, that's what I was saying. Like, I'm talking to a lot. I've always talked to guys, but I've been talking to people at a different level. People call me about players all the time, but the questions that are being asked, the programs that they're setting up now, I'm actually sitting here going, okay, so like every person that I've talked to from the OHL so far, I've sat there and at the end of it, just like this, I said, okay, if my son went here, I feel totally good about it because they're in good hands. So that's a credit to you too. You did a great job explaining the scouting system, the OHL. I think you've represented the Ontario Hockey League really well today, which goes a long way, I hope. But it was great, Kevin, so far. And I'm going to ask you one more thing. No, I'm not going to ask you. I'm going to suggest something. It's not a suggestion either. I don't know the word. Is there anything else that you would like to say? So I know for a fact right now there's players watching, there's parents watching, and there's some coaches. Is there anything that you would like to leave the webinar with for anybody?
Absolutely. The first thing is the book I was trying to recommend is called The Hard Hat by John Gordon. It's a great book. If you have a chance, it's a quick read too. Anyone can read it. Andy, I can get it for you. Book on tape for you. If I have this, the one thing I want to leave you off with is drafted or not, continue, just follow your dreams. You know what? You play hockey because you love it. It's a special community. As we've seen over the course of all through everything that's going on, the hockey community is extremely. You have your family, your blood family, and then you have your hockey family. And I'm telling you right now, they're both closely intertwined. And drafted, not drafted, follow your dreams. And if you work hard, good things do come to good people.
I agree, and that's it, eh, bud?
That's all I have to say there, yeah, Coach. Thank you for having me on. It was an honor to be able to chat with you over the computer here, and hopefully soon. All your players, best of luck this year and through your seasons. Continue to train hard. Parents, the advice for you: support your children. Just support them. They know. Like I can only like my mom and dad. I don't know how you do it nowadays. How expensive hockey is. My mom and dad wouldn't be able to do it. How expensive it is, and trust me, it doesn't go unnoticed. Both scouting and the coaching staffs that you have, they know that moms and dads and grandma and grandpas and everything, aunts and uncles put a ton into it. Just support your children. Be positive for them, even though it might be a bad day. And coaches, don't be afraid to let your kids make mistakes. The days of even Andy will tell you, I have a booming voice. And I used to scream a lot. That is the game has adapted and changed, and I had to adapt and change as well. But again, thank you for having me, Andy. If anyone has any questions, Andy has my contact information. I'd be more than happy to, you guys can email me those kind of questions. And you can get it from Andy. And again, best of luck, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy. And thanks, Puckface and Andy, for having me on.
Okay, Kevin, totally appreciate you coming on. You did a fantastic job. And if one of my Puckface members sees you at the rink, is it okay to say hi and introduce himself?
Absolutely. If my daughter's there, take her away and go buy her non-sugar candy.
Kevin, thank you, bud.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe and healthy, everyone.
Awesome, bud. Thank you.